I'm Jennifer Thompson, and I did my book-alike project with Golden Moore and Stephanie Gilbert. Together, we read the Watershed Book. It's a successful voyage into integrative learning by Mark Springer. Mark Springer is the author of this book. He created this book based on his experiences with a co-teacher of his, Ed Silcox. Their journey started when they were co-teaching a gifted class where the students had to create their own research and studies. And then once they have done research, they created what they called educational excursions, where they took the kids outside the classroom and they got to actually see hands-on the things that they studied. And many of these excursions led them to the watershed of the Brandywine River, which is located in Wayne, Pennsylvania. And this was at Radnor Middle School. So based on these experiences, they started wondering why they couldn't make a class with the whole learning concept focused with the overall theme of the watershed. And they got together, they presented the class, and created a seventh grade whole learning environment for what they called the theme of the watershed. One of the things that Mark Springer mentions about his idea of what whole learning is it's an educational system based as well as on the belief that every student deserves to feel a sense of ownership, a sense of pride, and a sense of belonging. And I believe this is the middle school philosophy that he is going with. And it's also philosophy, I think, of a lot of our middle school teachers, and that middle school isn't about just dispensing knowledge to students, but it's about making them part of it, feeling like they belong, they have a sense, they have a say into their education. I think that all sort of envelops around this whole learning idea that Mark Springer presents here. Whole learning is also called interdisciplinary learning. There's generally a big theme and then sort of like a project-based learning underneath this theme. And these projects incorporate all the subject areas. And then the total reintegration of knowledge is the idea that students are researching and finding and exploring this knowledge without the teachers just giving it to them. I really like this quote that he says, "The teacher is not a dispenser of specific knowledge, but rather a co-learner in an ongoing process of searching for answers." And I really like that co-learner, that we are learning along with them, helping, guiding, facilitating in their interest to help them find answers to their natural curiosities. And also whole learning, emphasizes firsthand exploratory off-site learning experiences. And that's what I mentioned earlier. After they have studied and explored these topics, they get a hands-on experience out of the classroom. And those are the key terms and concepts basically of whole learning. One of the things that he mentions also is the comparison of factory-like schools to 21st century. And I found this interesting, seeing that this book was published in 1994. Their first watershed class was in 1985, and he's using words such as 21st century learner, which I don't know that we even coined that phrase yet back then. But he says, as we approach the 21st century, our schools still reflect the factory image of a century ago in terms of physical plant, curricular structure, and attitude towards the role of the individual learner. Students need to work with problem-solving procedures and open-ended conditions which more closely approximate the realities of the working/living world. And that sort of reminds me of our Common Core, and our push towards Common Core is to more this open-ended type thinking. I found this picture of a 1950s classroom, and it sort of reminds me of these factory-like schools that he mentions. The desks are in rows, the students are in their seat quietly waiting for the teacher, or in this case a student, to give them the knowledge, as they're just receivers. They're not really active participants. And I think sadly we see a lot of these classrooms type today, desks in a row, the teacher at the front. And that really goes against the philosophy of whole learning, where we want these 21st century schools where our kids are active participants in creating, having an idea. This is my students making solar cookers. We have solar panels on a roof, so we we found out about solar energy and how it affects and used different aspects of that. And then they had to create their own ovens to try to cook something using the sun. So this is them working in groups and then testing those theories, finding out how they could manipulate things better, what they could change, and we had a good time with this, eating some half-baked cookies. But again, it's the idea of this 21st century learner, this involved learner. One of his quotes he says is, "I would contend that one reason why so many students dislike school is their innate awareness of its false structure. They intuitively realize that school experiences bear little or no resemblance to their experiences outside of school." And I think we all can sort of relate to that. The Watershed Book was published by the National Middle School Association in 1994, which of course we know it's the AMLE now. So I believe the larger publication supports Mark Springer's philosophy towards middle school and what he thinks a middle level curriculum should be. One of the things I found interesting was when I researched Mark Springer, after he retired from classroom teaching, he's currently working with Nancy Doda on integrative learning, and that's one of our philosophy instructors. So we studied last quarter and got to do a live webcam through. But one of the things about the book that sort of resonated with me as well was how he talks about this watershed program that they created, where they had this whole learning, 2 teachers, integrated study, 47th grade kids working together. And people from colleges were coming to see what they were doing, and the National Middle School Association came and were touting all the great things that they were doing, yet none of Radnor Middle School would catch on or extend what they were doing. And so we had these 7th graders who had this awesome watershed experience, and then in 8th grade they had to go back to a regular class of going to different classes, separated by subject area. And that was a real sadness for Mr. Springer. So in my research, I found that once retired, he created the Soundings program, which is a whole learning program for the 8th grade at Radnor Middle School. And it looks like the students pick 3 themes of study for that year. And then they divide it into thirds and then create a project-based learning on these 3 themes with the students. And another thing that I noted as well was they incorporated some more math into it. And that would have been my one criticism, was that math was sort of interspersed in there. And I don't really think you can do that with math. It's something that builds and you have to learn and practice and integrate. So I think that was one weakness of the Watershed program, was the math. And it looks like they're trying to fix that with the Surroundings program. Next I want to show you is a quick clip from a watershed school in Alaska. Since this program, there's been watershed schools around the United States. They've been in Colorado, Alaska, Maine, some other things. And it's not necessarily the study of a watershed, but it's the idea of its study of a theme. And this gives you an idea how this differs from a traditional school.